Oh, holy cow, this is really different from my edit.
Oh, I would have never thought of doing it this way. Today I'm going to be editing Noah's photos. This should be interesting.
Here's how the video is going to work. Sam and I sent each other photos to edit. There are 3 rounds: portraits, landscape, and wildcards. Each round, he and I edit each other's photo, and then in the end, we're going to compare them to the original edits. Also, after the video, you're going to go subscribe to Samuel's YouTube channel and follow his Instagram. Simple.
So I've got Lightroom opened up on my computer right now, and the first portrait I'm gonna edit is this one. I like how the background is out of focus in this portrait. It gives a nice sense of depth to the image. Now I like the framing in this photo, but the way he's standing is a little bit awkward. So the first thing I'm going to do is crop the image to make it more of a medium close-up. Then I'm going to brighten it up a little bit, add some contrast and clarity to make it a little bit more smooth. And now in the HSL, I'm going to play with the colors a little bit, move the greens closer to a warmer tone to make him pop out a little bit more from the background. Then I'm going to add some teal shadows, a little bit of orange in the midtones, a bit of green in the highlights. And then in the calibration, this is where I like to do kind of like the icing on the cake, or the last details, if you will. What I'm going to do is shift the hues around a little bit until I get something that looks great. I want to be careful that the skin tone stays accurate though. Next thing I'm going to do is brighten the eyes just a little bit more and add some texture to them so that they're really sharp. After a little bit more of editing, I ended up with this.
I started with basic corrections. This involved changing the exposure and contrast to my liking. I also cropped the image and roughly tilted the horizon level so it was straight. It was hard to gauge that, but I just did something that I thought looked good and went from there. I always add a little bit of clarity, some vibrance and saturation to the photo. And then I took the brush and I painted in some of the highlights, the area of some of the highlights, to reduce those highlights and make the exposure a little bit more even overall. After that, I went to the HSL tab and I started playing with the colors a little bit, and eventually ended up deciding on going with a sort of golden hour-y feel. So I made the color temperature warmer, I added some magenta to the image overall, and in the end I ended up with this. Now, I honestly wasn't too happy with the result overall of the colors, so I ended up also exporting it in black and white, and that looks like this. Now moving on to the landscape photo. As always, I started with basic corrections. So I started off by cropping the image and fixing the horizon level to something that looked straight. Then I did exposure contrast. I recovered some detail in the highlights from the sky. I ended up using a brush to do most of that. Then I played around in HSL. I made the blues and the aquas much more cyan, and I also, in the HSL tab, exaggerated the oranges and reds in the photo because that wasn't a super prominent color and I want to bring more of that in. I also took the curves and I removed the total whites and total blacks, and then it was just a matter of kind of going back and forth, adjusting colors, and in the end, I ended up with this.
The second photo I'm going to edit is this landscape photo. Now, I really love the different elements in this photo. One thing I did notice though is that it's not 100% straight. So I'm going to crop it a little bit just so I can straighten the horizon line. And then I'm going to add some contrast, desaturate the greens, shift those greens to a little bit of a warmer tone. Then I'm going to add some teal shadows. Next, I'm going to jump to Photoshop to erase the spots in the water and make the water a little bit more clean. And after a little bit of playing with the colors and editing, I ended up with this. Last but not least, the third photo I'm going to edit is this one. What I love the most about this image is the colors. The background is just green, so it really makes the skin tones pop a little bit more. And the dog as well. The first thing I'm going to do here is brighten the image up just a little bit. Then I'm going to add some contrast, a little bit of teal in the shadows. I'm going to add some orange in the midtones to make it pop even more. And then in the calibration, again, I'm going to shift the hues to my liking without messing up the skin tones. The last thing I'm going to do here is brighten the eyes of the dog to make it pop even more out of the image. After a little bit of tweaking and playing with the colors, I ended up with this. And that's it. Let's see what Noah came up with.
Last photo, the wild card round. So I started out by doing basic corrections again, then went in and tried to remove as much of the chromatic aberration as I could, because I noticed quite a bit in this photo, and that's just the nature of the photo. You have all those little branches against a bright background. You're going to get some chromatic aberration no matter what. And then I played around with the curve, and then ended up just going with a simple S curve, and then played around with HSL, again making the sky cyan, reducing the luminance of the blues to keep some of that detail in the sky. And then I added a heavy vignette around the corners to draw your eye into the center. And then after that, I ended up going to Photoshop and adding a lens flare to add a little bit more interest. So that involved painting black background, finding the flare I wanted, putting it on there, and then adjusting the blend mode to screen to remove that black. I zoomed it, I positioned it how I wanted, and then I actually cut it off partway in the image with a feathered brush because I didn't want it covering the entire image. I increased the color temperature. I also blurred the edges of the photo where the vignette was, and that was just to further draw your eye into the center to that now fake sun in the sky. In the end, this is the result.
So now we're about to look at the photos, and since I didn't introduce myself earlier, what's up everyone? My name is Samuel Peter. I am a filmmaker, photographer, and today we're going to be reacting to the photos that we edited.
Oh, okay. This is much different than my edit. First of all, I like it a lot. Did you blur the background at all in Photoshop, or is that just how it was?
No, that's just how it was.
Something about the edit makes it seem like there's a lot more separation. Interesting.
Yeah. So I was going more for a Alan Palender editing style for this one.
Yeah.
So if you don't know who Alan Palender is, he's a professional photographer, and what I love the most about his photos is the colors. It's basically just desaturated greens and teal shadows and punchy warm tones. So
yeah, I desaturated the green, so there's some more kind of yellowy tones in it.
Oh, I see you. Oh, this is so different.
Wow, it's still so different though. Honestly, I like yours way better. Wow.
I didn't even see yours before. Oh wow. Yeah, I cropped mine in a little bit, but
yeah, I like that. I think you're right about how that kind of, I don't know, it kind of balances the image out.
Yeah.
Okay, now I actually exported this one both in color and in black and white because I was having a hard time getting the color to something that I liked. So yeah, I'm not sure. I probably should have taken a bit of a break and then come back to try to get the colors to a place I liked. But there's the black and white.
I like the colors.
Yeah.
Oh, I would have never thought of doing it this way. The second way you did it in black and white.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, because I just like keeping the colors. That's so different. No, that's good. So you can see it here.
Okay. So you went for almost more of a mellow look. There isn't as much saturation. It's a little bit dimmer in the exposure.
Yeah, so it's a little bit moody, you could say.
Yeah. I think it looks good.
But I don't know. I think I like your edit better because the way you shifted the greens to a warmer tone, I really like that. So can you?
Holy cow! This is really different from my edit. It is a completely different mood. Interesting. Yeah. So I just pulled up my photo. Wow, the difference is just night and day.
Wait, let me see.
Interesting. Yeah, so I decided to try to recover a lot of that detail in the island, which perhaps I was pushing the camera a little bit, but I tried to go for a much more, I don't even know, just a kind of a brighter feel. So you brought down the exposure in the shadows quite a bit. Interesting. I was wondering if this would be one of the ones with the smallest difference between them.
No, I think
But
this is a big difference.
okay. Yeah. There is
Yeah.
quite a bit of a difference. You didn't try to pull back the sky very much. I think I
No.
actually also used a brush for that in this one.
What I like
Um,
about yours is that we can actually see more of the sky and
yeah.
the clouds in the sky.
I think for such a simple photo, it's a really, really good image. I mentioned when I was doing the edit that I really liked the low angle. I use that quite a bit in my landscape
Yeah.
photography. Also, that out of focus grass leads your eye up to the
Yeah. I
house.
use that as a foreground.
Yeah, yeah. I think landscape photography is one of those. I I think it might be the most important genre in which to try to incorporate a foreground, a
Oh yeah.
midground, and a background. You know, if
Definitely.
with a portrait, if you only have the subject and then a background, no
Yeah.
foreground element really, then it's still a great photo. But
Mm.
for landscapes, oh, okay, this is also really different. Much more similar to the photo of Leaf from earlier.
Yeah. So what I
Interesting.
did is I darkened the not I didn't darken it, but I desaturated the greens a
Mm-hmm.
good bit,
Yeah.
and as you can see, and I brightened the eyes of the dog. And what I love about this photo is just how sharp the eyes are, and it's
Mm-hmm.
really hard to now focus on eyes, especially if it's not
Yeah.
human eyes.
I'm not sure which of these edits I like better either. I think that now that I'm looking at them side by side, my edit is lacking contrast. Um, almost. I don't know. It's almost lacking depth because of that. He kind of blends into the background, but
Yeah,
I just feel like the desaturated green and the added contrast makes the puppy stand out more in this one.
that's kind of what I was going for this one. I think most of my
These
edits.
comparisons are kind of making me
Really,
realize that I need to play around with my edits more and find the
yeah,
style I like because I kind of just go for the same thing roughly every time.
yeah. I like to experiment
Interesting.
with the different tools in Lightroom.
Downloading it now. Now, with this photo, I got a little bit creative.
Oh,
I actually chose it because I kind of wanted a bit of a
right.
challenge. Um, okay, so you went for quite a
Yeah,
simple edit. I ended up trying to be a bit fancy
I see
with my
lens
edit,
flare.
and I'm going back to that now to compare. But yeah, I added a lens flare in
Wow,
Photoshop.
this is so creative. I never. Why didn't I think of that? This is
It's
great.
not the kind of thing. The thing is, it's not the kind of thing that I tend to do in my own
Right.
edits. That's kind of the problem with this kind of comparison is you're in the mindset of, oh, this edit is gonna be compared, it's gonna be shown to a wider than usual audience, and so I at least found myself going much farther with the
Yeah.
edits than I might normally.
Pretty good.
Well, this was
Pretty good.
absolutely fascinating and eye-opening. So thank you for doing this challenge game
Yeah.
collab with me.
Thank you for having me on your channel. This was great. This was very fun.
Yeah, I definitely look forward to collaborating with you more in the
Yeah.
future, and seeing what other kinds of video ideas we can come up with. Perhaps we'll have to do a video similar to this, but with
Oh, I was thinking the
videos
same.
instead of
Well, I'll say
photos.
this. I'll say this. I know you use DaVinci and I use Premiere, so it might be something
Mm-hmm.
along those lines.
Well, that video can go on your channel
Yes.
next.